Hey guys, hope everyone out there is doing well as always. It is June has just started, and so it is already getting hot here in El Paso. But I wanted to give you guys a few updates on the process that I talked about in the last video. Just to give you a quick recap, I'll put some kind of link to the previous video. But to give you a quick recap, my wife and my son, we acquired their dual citizenship. And there was not really any pressing issue right now for us to do that, other than the fact that the Philippine Consulate General from Houston came here to El Paso. And so I wanted to do that. We were thinking we don't know when we will be this close to a consulate, so let's go ahead and do everything we can, get all this stuff done as much as we can while we're here. So during that visit, we did, while they were here in El Paso, we did acquire my wife and son's dual citizenship. And we also, my wife applied for her passport while we were there. So everything worked out pretty well. And the passport, my wife's passport did arrive. It arrived about 2 weeks ago. They told us it would maybe as late as June, but it was here around, I think, May 19th, May 20th. So that's cool. My wife now has her American passport and Philippine passport. Now, technically, she would not really need her Philippine passport to gain entrance into the Philippines. In other words, she could just show them her certificate of dual citizenship, and that would work just as well. But that certificate is not, to me, something that's not as easy to carry around as a passport. So now the only step we have left that we will try to do one of these days is to get my son's passport. We were not able to get his Philippine passport during the last trip, the thing I was telling you about. And what we were told is what we have to do is what's called a report of birth. And so I'll tell you just a little bit about that. It's on the consulate's website, so I'll put a link to that. But I'll just tell you a couple of mistakes that I made that cost me a little bit of money, and so maybe you can avoid those. What you have to do is you have to report the birth of your child back to the Philippines if your child is going to have a passport. And I won't get into all the legal issues of that, but I'm just telling you, when we were not able to apply for my son's passport because he had recently acquired his dual citizenship and they had no record of his birth in the Philippines. That's a requirement. So what you have to do is this report of birth stuff. And that can be done through mail. The application for my son's passport cannot be done through mail, but the report of birth can be done through mail. So there are forms you can download and all that kind of stuff. But I made a couple of mistakes. When I was filling out my son's report of birth form, I was not thinking about the fact that, and I should have known better, but I was filling out a form for the Philippines, not for here in the States. And what I mean by that is, okay, my son here in the U.S. has a first, middle, and last name. But as a lot of you know, that in the Philippines, that his official Filipino name also has his mother's maiden name as part of his middle name. He has 4 names in the Philippines. And so when I was filling out those forms, when I put my wife's name and my son's name, I was not putting the names in the right way. I was not writing them as if we were in the Philippines in terms of my wife's middle name, my son's middle name, all that stuff. So that's one mistake I made, and I also did not include, because this just wasn't clear to me, but they have this form. If you report the birth over a year after your child is born, you have to include this thing. It's like an affidavit of report of delayed birth, something like that. And so I had to go back and do that. And I will give you some. I will put some links in this video because when what I have found is sometimes when you're I'm not trying to be complaining or disrespectful, but sometimes when I have asked the consulate about these issues, getting the right information back is not always consistent. I'll just put it that way. So anyway, I did find that form and got all that stuff finally done. But those mistakes that I was telling you about, not filling out the report of birth form correctly and not including that little affidavit thing, what happened is I sent all that to Houston, and then it got all sent back to me through the self-addressed envelope I'd sent to them and says, we need this, this, and this. And so not a big deal because, again, we're not in a hurry for this. But it did cost me a little bit of money because all these forms you do, you have to get them notarized. And, of course, that costs money. So if you're paying $4, $5, $6, whatever per form, then that added to the expense. But all that to say, now I have done everything necessary to report our son's birth to the Philippines. And they emailed everything back to me and said, this will serve as this will serve the requirement. What's that on my shoulder? This will serve as the requirement of the report of birth if you want to apply for his passport now. After, I think it's 8 months, 1 year, then you would have to get an official birth certificate online. And so we'll just see. But anyway, just look carefully. Just keep that in mind when even after you get your child's dual citizenship. If you want his or her passport, you have to go through the process of reporting his or her birth back to the Philippines. Again, it doesn't make. I get it, but some of the stuff I had to do, like the affidavit of delayed report of birth, explaining why you haven't done it within a year. Well, my son wasn't even a Filipino citizen at the time of his birth because both my wife had already been naturalized by that time as an American citizen. So, in other words, some of these steps are kind of like, why is this so important? But it is what it is, and it's no big deal. So anyway, I've done that. I will try to include a few links in the description below showing you the right way to do that. But the report of birth is important, and so anyway, we've completed that. And again, we're not even planning to visit the Philippines right away. So none of this stuff is really urgent. It's just stuff that I wanted to do. So those are a few tips about that, and I just hope this helps.